Have you ever been stuck in one of those conversations where it feels like you're being held against your will? You know, with one of those people who keeps talking but never utters anything substantial? No matter how many times you say that you gotta go or you motion towards the door, this person just keeps yammering on about shit you couldn't care less about. Supergirl is the cinematic embodiment of those conversations. A film so tone-deaf that even rags like Variety and shills like Grace Randolph won't defend it. Though Angry Joe decided that it was a hill to die on for some reason. The movie's only been out for about a week and it's already one of the biggest box office bombs of the decade. And it was so obvious that it could be seen coming from miles away by anyone with eyes. And without eyes. Eyes were actually completely optional this time. One would need to go back pretty far to the distant year of 2025 to find a movie with a marketing campaign this goddamn horrendous. Funny enough, it seemed as though all trace of the film's production had mostly faded from the collective consciousness of the entire human race. After getting rightfully eviscerated for the laughably abysmal first trailer, slowly but surely mentions on social media ceased and whatever cultural footprint or lack thereof went straight into the memory hole. Somehow, against the odds, they actually outlasted initial negative reactions through the clever tactic of achieving irrelevance. It was a blessing that the PR team should have not only embraced, but used as a way to quietly course-correct everything. But rather than make the intelligent decision and tell everyone to just shut their fucking mouths, well...
In honor of Pride Month, as I'm getting all these questions, I don't know. I think that what makes this film so beautiful is that it's not centered around a man. It's not centered around love at all. I don't know. I don't know. She'd probably go both ways.
As if she just graduated summa cum laude from the Rachel Zegler School of Shitty Interviews, Millie Alcock proceeded to bury the film every time she decided to incoherently chain words together. With each passing day, more dirt was piled on whenever Alcock pried open her underbite to say the dumbest possible thing she could in that moment. Quickly, all doubt that this movie wouldn't be a dumpster fire was removed, and with it, any chance of recovering even a modicum of its bloated budget. And that's not even accounting for the foreskin drink cup.
let me stroke your cup.
It feels like a dick! I told you to trust me on these kinds of things.
So let's just see how much this thing fucking sucks. And even though I have a feeling it really doesn't matter, spoilers ahead.
I don't think he gives a shit.
The film opens up with the exact thing we all needed to quell our fears from the trailer. By showing us everything we saw in the trailer. Yup, the whole shit and caboodle. Crypto pissing on Superman's picture, drunken space escapades, and a severe lack of accountability from Supergirl herself, Kara Zor-El. Elsewhere we see the Knoll family, some sort of space weaponsmiths who get an unexpected visit from the Brigands. A group of space pirates led by Krem the Yellow, who I can only explain as looking as though someone took Vin Diesel, removed all of the lead and replaced it with corn extract. Well, Vin Ethanol is here to collect some amazing swords that the family patriarch Elias has forged. Swords which the Knolls agree to give up with little to no resistance, but that shit's not gonna fly for Vin. He's not in the business of being given things, he's gonna take them. Kinda seems like this movie should be over already. All of this commotion gets the attention of Ruthie, the young daughter of the family who proceeds to sneak down to get a better look. While she does that, she's noticed by her brother, who is blissfully unaware of seemingly everything as he was too busy jerking off in his room. In a moment of hilariously terrible timing, he decides to put his dick away and jump out into the hallway to scare his sister, getting shot in the process. In response, Elias sets off magnetic mines which destroy the Brigand ship. Probably should have done that sooner, just saying. Leading to Vin murdering both Elias and his wife as Ruthie looks on in horror. We rejoin Kara at a local pub, once again getting shit-faced when Ruthie just shows up out of nowhere declaring her intentions to kill Vin Ethanol with the very sword that he originally came to collect. Which he didn't take with him for some undisclosed reason. But like any good space douchebags would, they all decide to instead give her shit and just take it. Which is done by the biggest, meanest looking motherfucker in the room. Kara, in a drunken stupor, decides that she's going to intervene, which normally would be a great idea if the bar was located on a planet with a yellow star. But since that would mean that Kara would be unable to get plastered, this particular watering hole happens to be on a planet with a red sun. And as anyone with even the slightest degree of comic knowledge knows, this means that she's currently a powerless 5'2", 100-pound alcoholic. Basically a sorority chick who's standing up to an alien twice her height, 6 times her weight, and has zero reason to not snap her neck. So of course this fight goes exactly how you would expect. She beats the utter living shit out of him after Crypto bites his dick off. What, you thought something else would happen?
No.
Silly logical consumer. She then just leaves without Ruthie as if the rest of the criminals in the bar aren't immediately going to do the exact same thing the 8-foot freshly castrated dude tried to do just minutes earlier. The next morning, Kara is awakened by more trailer footage. Yay.
I'm worried you're not going to find your people.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, Clark. I have no people.
before being interrupted by Ruthie, who again tries to recruit her to go find Vin Ethanol. Kara declines for a second time while stumbling to the toilet to piss all over herself while the door is wide open. And then without so much as wiping herself off, they just walk around discussing how Ruthie plans to find Vin. But funny enough, if they were to just look around, they would see that he is currently here and through absolute narrative convenience has seemingly chosen at random to steal Kara's ship.
Coincidence? I think not!
Krypto tries to be the goodest boy by defending their property, but just ends up getting Old Yellard with a dart full of plot device juice for his trouble. Which honestly may have been shocking if it wasn't in, you guessed it, the trailer. What is this mysterious toxin, you ask? Well, according to some random witch doctor or some shit who just happens to be nearby, it's a poison that the brigands are known to use that causes painful permanent paralysis and is fatal after 3 moon cycles on this planet. One for which an antidote can only be synthesized from the exact batch used. Meaning that Krypto is fucked, because it's not like Vin Ethanol would have a pre-made batch of that shit he constantly carries on his person, right? Right? Oh, that's exactly the situation? Yeah, it sounds correct. So this is the part where the plot starts exhibiting huge contrivances to justify its own existence. Krypto has Kryptonian DNA, so if they were to simply get him to a yellow star, his body would go into super mode and counter the poison from within. But because her ship was stolen, she can't easily fly to one. It's not like there's an entire corps of intergalactic cops who can fly faster than the speed of light while holding something in a self-contained bubble. You know, a group that has a member that's maybe a really close friend of your cousin's or something. Nah, that couldn't possibly exist. Or better yet, I don't know, ask someone on the planet to help you the fuck out. But no, those ideas don't even cross her mind. She just sets her watch for 3 moon cycles.
Which is exactly 72 hours, by the way.
What an unbelievable coincidence!
And leaves to find Vin with zero idea where the fuck she's even going. Ruthie tries to come with her, but is told no because having someone from the area is of no use to Kara for some reason.
That doesn't make sense.
Now let me ask you something. If you were incredibly pressed for time, what is the single most ideal method of transportation? Well, so long as you didn't say the bus, you're infinitely more intelligent than Kara, because that's exactly what she chooses as a rickety-ass ship arrives driven by what appears to be Babu goddamn Frick. And because Ruthie hasn't learned her lesson, she's not only followed Kara, but has also somehow insulted a passenger by putting a bag near their feet. An act that in the native customs means your mother is a whore. What? Yeah, who knows? No sooner than that shit gets cleared up via whatever the fuck this is.
What the fuck?
The bus is boarded by Scalarian raiders, a collection of lesbian tech pirates who intend to rob the passengers. Why this group that clearly has access to expensive-ass shit would need to knock over public transportation for the lowest common denominator of society is anyone's guess, but that's what's happening. Through some sleight of hand, Kara is able to swipe one of their teleportation devices to try and fight back. But once again, since she doesn't have her power, she just ends up looking like Nightcrawler's retarded cousin instead of Superman's. This plan fails so miserably that she sneaks to the front to ask Busso Frick how far the nearest yellow star is. And wouldn't you fucking know it, they're like 8 miles from that shit, meaning she literally could have just brought Krypto here and this would have all been over with. But I have no such luck, so the shit show continues. She attempts to stealthily put on a spacesuit to go out to the star, but is caught and pushed out of the airlock. And since we've established that she's just normal, that means she's fucking dead and we can all go home now, right?
Wrong.
Nope, the sun just rises over the horizon about 6 seconds later, meaning she never had to leave the goddamn bus in the first place. With her powers returned, she's now able to immediately fight back, but then she stops for no apparent reason to get closer to the star, even though that's completely unnecessary. Best guess is that she had to aura farm before turning her attention back to the Scalarians, but not to kill them. No, instead she just ties them up, which can only be chalked up to there being some sexual tension.
I don't know. She'd probably go both ways.
And also some relevant information about the brigands they just happen to conveniently have. But she doesn't ask for that right away. First, she has to take a brief pit stop off at Space 7-Eleven for an alien Slurpee. I wish that was a fucking joke. Then it's back to the Scalarians to find out the brigands are basically the opposite of the raiders. As you probably noticed, they're all males, pretty ugly, and likely smell terrible. So basically every convention you've ever been to. But because of these limitations, they're into trafficking to attain brides to procreate.
Sorry, what?
Before it can even settle in that we were just told about a sex slave ring, Kara takes Ruthie clothes shopping.
By the way, stores in space even have that annoying notification noise when you walk in.
All while they have this silly, annoying discussion about how she shouldn't be called girl if Clark is called man. Holy fucking feminist overload, Batman. Shit, they're a wage gap away from completing the 2016 Talking Points bingo card. Even if we ignore the fact that these juxtaposed scenes were effectively a gender studies course syllabus, it's hard to comprehend that a serious topic like sex trafficking was sandwiched between two instances of female characters shopping and complaining about nonsense. To say this film's tone is off wouldn't sum it up.
Just say what we want.
Shut
when
the
you think about it, go!
Well, since they're still no closer to their target, it's been a few scenes since we were in a bar, it's time to head back to one. And of course, because it's the theme of the movie, apparently, all of the scummy men vie for the services of Ruthie. Kara offers up not only Ruthie, but herself to anyone who could beat her in an arm wrestling contest, which goes exactly how you'd think. Triggering an extremely ill-advised bar fight. Because I don't know about you, but if I just watched the strongest dude in the room get his arm snapped like a twig, the first thing I plan to do is attack the person who did it.
Okay, this does not look like this is gonna end well. For you guys.
And she's not incorrect. That's exactly how it goes until the moment that we've all been waiting for happens. Aw, shit, it's the main man. It's about to go down. Except that it doesn't. He instead takes a few shots of space Mexican tequila and says that he's also looking for the brigands. Because it's her lot in life, Ruthie of course tries to recruit him, but he works alone, and for money, so he just leaves.
That was a bit anticlimactic.
Did she just forget that she's been offering up her rare, valuable sword as currency up to this point? Why the fuck didn't she just do that? This is literally the first person that shit might actually work on. Since we've established that this entire script is built on completely unrealistic coincidences, the owner of this bar that just had its salad tossed happened to know someone who could help the girls find the brigands. And wouldn't you know it, they're gonna see him tonight.
You're kidding, what a crazy random happenstance. Here.
So basically, with no persuasion required and not a single question asked, they go to the bar owner's house to wait. And wait they do for like a really long time, allowing the script to reach the background and exposition portion. Kara tells Ruthie exactly why she's so jaded and Clark isn't, as we're reminded of shit that we already know about Krypton's destruction, with the added caveat that Kara's father Zor-El was able to save the city of Argo, doing so by encapsulating it in a force field and literally just floating away. Which is significantly less awesome than the version that actually happened in the comics, but at least it's fucking close. For the next decade or so, the Kryptonians continue to live on their protected pseudo-planet until everyone mysteriously becomes terminally ill. You see, within the barrier, in the very foundation of Argo, there is kryptonite. And as we all know, this is deadly to their species. Extremely deadly, like immediately debilitatingly deadly. So of course it took 15 years for the symptoms to show up. Kara's mother dies, and we see that at her funeral, Kara meets Krypto.
Look, if they're allowed to switch the pronunciation as many times as they want, a $200 million production, I'm gonna do it as well.
Before her father sends both of them to be with Clark on Earth. And what is the reason this story is told to Ruthie, you ask? Well, it's to explain to her that revenge is a bad thing. I'm sorry, what? Nothing in that story remotely explains that at all. But before any justification is given, Kara goes to check on the status of the owner's guy that can help. But these people that she barely knows are acting sus as fuck, as it turns out that their daughter was captured and taken into sex slavery. And apparently the brigands have a 2-for-1 special that they run, where if you can get them a duo of other concubines, they'll return your lightly used loved one. So in order to pull this off, they poison Kara. But remember, she's under yellow starlight, so this shit should have zero effect. Except that it still somehow kinda works for reasons unbeknownst to us. And since I know that my audience is way smarter than this movie would ever give them credit for, I'm sure that you figured out that their guy is Vin Ethanol, who arrives just in time to fight Kara, who is vomiting uncontrollably. But after a while, the word assemblers remember that shit shouldn't be affecting her, and she starts going back to normal. Well, normal in the sense that they keep forgetting about 90% of her powers, because her super speed and senses alone should have ended this shit in 5 seconds flat. Since Vin is wearing the antidote out in the open, Kara should be able to not only snatch it in the blink of an eye, but also hurl him into space before he even knows what the fuck happened. By the way, these are some of the single worst fight scenes you could possibly imagine. There isn't a punch or kick originating from Alcock's body that is in any way convincing. Well, luckily for everyone involved, both on screen and the unfortunate souls watching this piece of shit, Lobo shows up for about 30 seconds to save the scene because his target happens to be Vin Ethanol's second in command, who I really don't know what to call this guy, so just hold on.
Hey, give me a name for an actor that Vin Diesel works with a lot. No, not Paul Walker. He doesn't deserve to have his name dragged through the mud. Ludacris. Yeah, that'll work.
Lobo snatches up Ludacris and in the process lets all of the brides free. Vin then chases after specifically the daughter of the owners with the intent of killing her and her family. A task which he's successful at because Kara stops Ruthie from stabbing Vin from behind for reasons that only make sense to her. Once again, this shouldn't even be the case. Did anybody in the word assembly room remember that she has super speed? She'd be able to move Ruthie, change her outfit, eat a snack, take a shit, and then grab the family before she comes back to kick Vin in the balls. But rather than doing all of that logical stuff, she instead blames Ruthie for the death of the family that not even 20 minutes ago was trying to sell them into sex slavery. What the fuck is even going on here?
Fuck if I know.
Well, I'll tell you who also has no idea. Kara, as she flies up into space, somehow takes a breath and starts screaming. Then she flies back down to question some motherfucker who looks exactly like Watto from Phantom Menace. This dude promises to take her to a secret location to find the brigands and forces her to put a bag over her head, which shouldn't matter because she has X-ray fucking vision, before dropping her off. And wouldn't you good goddamn well know it, this too is a double cross, a ruse perpetrated by yet another shady-ass person that Kara just met. Turns out the planet she's being deposited on is in a binary star system, where one of them is yellow, which is of course good, and the other one is green, which is bad. They also don't exist. But let's just play around with it for a little bit. Apparently they're deadly to Kryptonians. And it just so happens that that's the one that's currently above their heads.
Wait a minute! You're telling me that this dumb bitch couldn't tell that something was up with any of her powers? Seriously?
Okay, so we've established that she has X-ray vision, super hearing, and moves faster than the speed of sound. Yet she didn't think that it was a good idea to take a peek or even listen to anything that was being said around her for this entire trip. Not to mention, wouldn't she have felt that they were approaching a green star? As soon as they got into the solar system, her body would have been reacting and it would have been long before it was a complete issue. But they treat it like so long as she's inside of a ship, the residual radiation doesn't affect her at all. Did any of the retards who are writing this shit pay attention in 8th grade science class?
That's not how it works. That's not how any of this works.
Anyway, Kara collapses in the middle of nowhere and starts to hallucinate about the time she met Clark and her acclimation to Earth. She begins to come to, but is about half dead when she finds out that some the fuck how Ruthie recovered her body before the brigands. Even though they were the ones who set this up in the goddamn first place. Ruthie then goes to fetch some water for Kara to drink from the fucking ocean, only to get captured and thrown into a prison right next to Lobo. How the hell they got him in here is anyone's guess because they never fucking explain it. But we all know it's yet another plot convenience. Vin then enters the scene to taunt her and offer up freedom in exchange for Kara's body, which he wants as a trophy. And when Ruthie refuses, he sentences her to death at the end of the day. Why not now? There's literally no reason to wait. All this does is give her a chance to formulate a plan with Lobo on how to break out, which is exactly what the fuck happens in the very next scene. But like the retard that she is, she doesn't stay with the super strong, hyper-violent mercenary who can protect her. No, she decides that she's John goddamn McClane and sneaks through the vents to retrieve her sword, which she does with zero difficulty. You know what, let's check back in with Kara, shall we? Seems that her luck is just as good as Ruthie's as the green star is setting and the yellow star is rising. Meaning that had Ruthie just waited like a half hour, Kara would have recovered her powers and been fine. But the plot needed to happen, so she didn't. Kara then puts on her costume and beats the utter living piss out of Vin and his men, which is exactly how this movie should have ended 45 minutes ago. But because we need to pad the runtime even further, Vin shoots her with multiple kryptonite darts. So like this time she's dead, right? Enough of these false finishes. Wait, actually let me guess, Lobo pulls that random showing up out of nowhere bullshit, doesn't he?
Travel size is always easier.
Of course he does. He pulls all but one of the kryptonite darts out of Kara's body because I guess he needs to be a dick. It's okay though, she just pulls it out herself and regains all of her powers, but then immediately goes back to struggling with the henchmen. Would it be too much to ask for just a little consistency? It doesn't need to be super solid, like just maybe like oatmeal level consistency. She saves Ruthie from Vin and is then reminded that there's like 6 dozen other girls locked in a basement somewhere, so this becomes priority number 1 even though it should only take about 10 seconds to accomplish. But it's because they need to remove Supergirl, that way Ruthie can have her triumphant badass moment of standing up to a bunch of violent criminals that have her surrounded. Ones that for some reason just don't want to kill her, I'm not really sure why. She somehow holds them off long enough for Kara to get back and smack everyone around in a cloud of dust. Which is likely an artistic decision to hide these shitty ass teep kicks she keeps throwing at people and missing entirely. All to the tune of a shitty cover of The Middle. This is quite literally the first time I'm thankful that I can't play licensed music on here. Kara, for seemingly the 15th time, convinces Ruthie not to kill Vin, saying it will ruin her life and innocence. She then takes the antidote from him and kills him herself, because I guess those rules don't apply to her. With no time wasted, we're teleported back to Crypto, where he receives the antidote and within 9 seconds is fully recovered, jumping around like nothing ever happened. Just remember, this was a powerful toxin that was supposed to kill him within 72 hours and cause paralysis before that. With their missions completed, Kara vows to never get drunk again and head back home. Well, that is until Ruthie says, fuck it, let's go get drunk, and Kara does it one more time before she goes to meet up with Clark. What a fucking mess of a script. You could tell that they had no idea where they wanted to go with this, so they just took 3 completely unrelated and totally different stories and mashed them together before calling it a day.
Well, my work is done here.
What do you mean your work is done? You didn't do anything.
I'm not surprised in the slightest this depiction of Supergirl isn't going over particularly well. It is, after all, based on the work of one of the most divisive writers in all of comics, Tom King. For those of you who are unaware, King was originally an assistant to legendary X-Men writer Chris Claremont. And you'd assume that being in such close proximity to one of the greatest to ever do it would rub off on a person. And that very well may have been the case had he not quit to become a CIA counterterrorism operations officer for 7 years. A position he also left just after 9/11, presumably because shit was just getting too hard. After writing a book so terrible even he said it sucks ass, those in power within the comic industry figured it was the perfect time to bring a dude a decade removed from the medium back into the fold to bastardize popular characters by writing them in the way he wanted to rather than the way they actually the fuck are. Because who doesn't want Dick Grayson to decide being Nightwing is dumb and that he actually really should be a secret agent? Or tease a wedding between Batman and Catwoman that goes absolutely nowhere? But what's most relevant to this film is of course his boneheaded choice to turn Supergirl into an alcoholic who's allergic to responsibility. It isn't like positive role models for girls would be useful in this accountability-less OnlyFans era we find ourselves unfortunately smack dab in the middle of. In the interest of fairness, in the comic, the bit with the booze only lasts a few pages. But don't let James Gunn or screenwriter Anna Nogueira know that shit, as they seem even more hell-bent on writing the story they want instead of the one that should be told. I'm just surprised that Gunn didn't mandate that in the script there be a scene where his wife gets randomly deep-dicked by John Cena while he watches in the corner.
Gross.
Speaking of James Gunn, this now marks his second theatrical at-bat for the DCU, and both have been hilarious strikeouts. It's getting to the point where you need to start wondering how long they're going to let him keep stepping up to the plate, especially with the WB Paramount merger in full swing. He continues to prove that his sophomoric humor and incessant need to go against the grain is clearly not the foundation upon which an entire cinematic universe should be built. It worked for Guardians of the Galaxy mostly because it was an IP that almost no one had any familiarity with, allowing him to project his own vision on what might as well have been a blank slate to the general populace. Though that being said, I wouldn't be shocked if he truly believes that Guardians was actually the first film in the MCU and everyone followed. It's well documented that one of his primary issues has been his unapologetic reliance on nepotism to fill out his cast lists. But I think one that doesn't get mentioned enough is the fact that he seems to be perpetually locked in a bygone era. Gunn's style of filmmaking is one that is very much from the late 90s and 20-aughts. And when you look at his history and filmography, it's easy to see why. Don't get me wrong, it still works for certain projects, but absolutely should not be used with the consistency we are now seeing. You know, unlike her Trainwreck media tour to hype the movie up, I can't really lay the blame at the feet of Millie Alcock's performance here. I'm not saying that she was brilliant or anything, but she understood the assignment and was appropriately cast. And that's the problem. She just never comes off as Supergirl for a single solitary second of the entire runtime. It's almost as though she was being told to channel late-stage Tara Reid, and considering that this is James Gunn we're talking about, I wouldn't be surprised if that's who he really wishes he had for the role. I do think that she was hung out to dry a bit by the production company, who did her absolutely no favors by setting her up for extremely terrible interviews that put the spotlight on her in the worst possible way. Officially making her the latest member of the shoulda just shut the fuck up club, because unfortunately it highlighted a lot of things that will haunt her career going forward. And I don't just mean the fact that they consistently filmed her in a way that makes it obvious you could fit a brick in her mouth without hitting so much as a single tooth.
Es mi cream, yeah.
It's really easy to praise Jason Momoa here, considering he's the only one who even seemed like he wanted to be there. And that's likely only because of the fact that all of his scenes could have been filmed in a single day. In every way, he was basically the antithesis of Alcock. The look was spot on, and for his brief screen time, he really felt like the main man. The only issue is that the film didn't deserve it. Especially when you take into account the character wasn't even in the book that it's based on. It was clearly a decision to try and spark interest. But Lobo isn't that guy. He won't move the needle like when they put Michael Keaton's Batman in The Flash, and even that barely worked. So essentially what we're left with is a fairly solid performance that will be forgotten because it's buried under a mound of shit.
Time to get what's mine.
Speaking of shit, that's exactly what this looked like start to finish. The CGI was atrocious, the choreography was laughable, and the dialogue was cringeworthy. It really felt like a first draft, a first take, and a first cut all rolled up into one final turd. When you look at the amazing work that so many recent productions have done on shoestring budgets, it's absolutely pathetic that this is what they came up with for nearly $200 million. Like I already stated, it felt like they just pasted together pages from multiple scripts, and this created one of the absolute worst scenarios possible. It takes forever for nothing to get done. No scene feels like it has stakes or consequences, and whatever development just occurred is immediately thrown away. It's like watching a feature-length episode of Family Guy where we just keep cutting to unrelated forgettable nonsense that contradicts other previously established plot points.
What's that?
So was Supergirl as terrible as we all feared it would be? Yes. But it also surprised us by finding even more ways that we could have possibly anticipated. It's so horrid and losing so much money that it might actually be the final tipping point for studios to realize that the era of simply tossing a cape onto some shitty script is not the money printing factory it once was. It's been seriously insulting how little they give a fuck about the superhero genre, because like many of you, I consider myself a massive fan of many of these IPs. Whether it be through sheer incompetence or nefarious agenda, to see them bastardized like this is just sad. But maybe, just maybe, this time they'll learn their lesson. Probably not, but maybe. And if that doesn't convince you that an ass ton of people are currently being fired over at WB, I don't know what to tell you.